Alright, for this video, I wanted to go through some legacy, through some modern technology. This is a hard drive video. It's kind of a hard summary to break down, but this is about hard drives. Let's start out by thanking everybody for stopping by, checking out another video from Yates Computers Tips and Reviews. Make sure you hit the subscribe and the bell. There's going to be more content. I'm going to break down some of these in the future, take them apart, dispose of them. So this is a good time for everybody to see all the different stuff. It's going to be a lot of legacy. Not to mention, there's a lot of future legacy here. Stuff like, it's in an enclosure, but an old spinning mechanical hard drive. This is pretty much legacy. Nobody wants this anymore. This is too slow. Everybody's gone to probably, let me open it up so you can actually see the card. NVMe. This is the new technology out there. This is the new faster stuff. This is the SATA version of an m.2. Go check out all the videos on that to figure out the differences. So, here's another one. This is technically a form of a hard drive. Servers and other kind of computers actually have these slots on the motherboards for you to use them. USB drives can be a form of a hard drive. Of course, you got your old style big mechanical spinning drive. Of course, this is the SATA. And then you get into the old stuff, the old legacy stuff. The IED. There's quite a few different styles, speeds. These are really really small compared to the modern drives. Now, I did say small. It's not small. I wanted to show that. Compared to what people are running today, there's an external case and everything next to what some of these old drives actually used to be. I wanted people to see this, to see the difference of where the technology's gone. Look at this. Look at those big capacitors, all the big chips. You don't see that no more. You went from, that's not even the right cable, but big ribbon cables, even bigger than this, to this. There's another drive. You can see the date. You can see what size. They're tiny. Small amounts of data. With the jumpers. You don't have jumpers anymore. That would tell you if it's the slave or master on the cable. You'd have two drives on a cable. Go back, watch all those legacy videos. Go back and watch all that. It's good to know where this technology actually came from, where you came from on it. Here's the first kind of old-fashioned external casing that you'd put a drive in. This one is actually can be used for either style, CD-ROM, or hard drive. These were the old styles. Now you're down to something like this. Or this. Big difference between this and this other one, the little m.2, is you don't need an independent power. It's all run off your USB. These old enclosures, you had to have a full power. You have your USB. There was an actual power switch. There's a whole circuit board in here. There's all kinds of stuff in here to control this stuff. So I wanted to go through and show some of this stuff. show the old legacy technology, to show you where things have gone. Because if you're getting into tech now, you're probably only dealing with 2 or 3 of these type of things. Probably here in the next couple years, this will be probably just your backup. Might not be this one. It might be this one. USB speed. They come out with a new USB adapter speed this year. That's going to get speeds up, where this might become the current technology. Now, of course, there's different versions of that. Version 3, version 4 at this time, version 5 coming out. Color Wars video. Didn't go into too much details. Version 5, higher speeds. So, wanted to go through a lot of that. Stuff like that. Servers have that on the board. You have some of these mini PCs that actually use these, but they're the smaller cards. Some of them use the full length card. This is the full length card. So I wanted to go through and explain some of this, because this is really another factor I don't really hear a lot of people talk about. The little minis, like I have the unboxing and I have that I'm using for my office, is a mini. Small form factors are different. Depending on if it's a small or a smaller size case, can actually use the 2.5 drive. I've seen them right on the top of the box and everything else is underneath it. A lot of them are going to the NVMe or the m.2 because of the size. The size is the major factor. And of course, the benefits of the speed. But again, if you use an m.2 SATA and the SATA drive are basically the same. So now you're dealing with size. You're not dealing with any kind of performance difference. So wanted to sum that up, go through that, because when you get into this factor of hard drives, what storage, what data rates, all this type of stuff, I wanted to show from the old days. Again, now, there's the second factor of this, is how many things these things can do at a time. I say things because there's multiple things here. How many times I can read, how many times I can write at the same time. That's a whole different variable. That eliminates almost all of this, except for the new technology, m.2 and the solid state. I have somewhere. I don't have one out here. And the solid state drive. It would be this kind of a thing, but the solid state. That really changes some of the factors that come into play. These are your two modern drives, because they can read and write and do multiple things at one time. They can do multiple things. That's the problem with the spinning mechanical drive, is they can only do one thing at a time. So that's what makes these drives so much faster. If you're looking at upgrading, you really want to look at what your motherboard supports. I've mentioned this before. Do your homework. Research it. Figure out what your motherboard supports. If it has an m.2 port, what speeds? Is it 3, 4, future 5? Whatever it is out there. Maybe it's a slower speed 2. The reason I throw that out there, SATA. SATA 2 hard drives, SATA 3 hard drives. It's the data rate they transfer at. If you go from a spinning mechanical drive to a SATA drive to a solid state it will perform better. Even if you're running SATA 2 and you put a SATA 3 drive in, you're still going to have a huge performance benefit. So I wanted to go through some of these things because this is really where it can get confusing. Now, businesses is another thing where a lot of businesses and servers, a lot of people need to kind of upgrade to, because servers had a different kind of drive in them. Where it's basically, it's a smaller, thinner drive. It's basically these kind of drives. Different socket, different speed. But the problem is, what kind of drive is it? Is it a spinning disk drive, or is it a solid state? Go to the solid state, you have a lot more better performance. There are professional grade, server grade, solid state drives out. This is a factor that a lot of people will have to learn more on if you're doing business-wise. You may want to do your backups and stuff on a spinning drive. It's more reliable. It's more whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to use for terminology of why you want to use that kind of drive. But for your basic operating system and other functions that server's doing, you're going to want the speed. Plus, if you have a spinning mechanical drive where you're just doing backups to, it's going to last you a long time, and it's going to be a larger data size than the SATA. That's one of the factors that are out there. So you might not want SATA for backup and SATA for your primary operations because of the data size, how much you can back up, how many times you can back up your images, how much data retention can you have. If you have a mirror-to-mirror kind of a backup where you have 500 gigs going to a 500 gig drive for backup, you have one copy. Where you might want to go back to the old spinning mechanical, get a 4 terabyte drive, and you end up with over 8 copies. So that's one of the variables that are out there still, is the size of the drives. When you do backups and you do other things, you may want to use a spinning mechanical drive and compared to a SATA drive due to the size. But this is where there's a different variable here, because this is not your primary drive you're running off of. You want to use the faster drives that you can get for your primary activity. This is one of the big things for gaming and other things. Getting the faster drives. Getting that speed. Letting it get to the processor and memory faster and not wait for the spinning mechanical. So, of course, this drive with its, 6 gig connection or whatever it is for the SATA is a lot faster than what it used to be in the old days. So, I wanted to go through that and brush through some of where this technology has gone. Of course, you can always use something like a USB drive for your backups to do whatever you want instead of that drive. There's even ways to put in virtual operating systems and virtual stuff onto USB drives and boot off of the USB drive. Same with these. Some computers actually have slots in the front. You can actually put the card in and you can actually use it that way. Or on the motherboard. Or you buy an adapter to put that in to the USB. A hub that has those in there where you can use those features. So there's a lot of variables here with hard drive itself. Problem with the virtual machines and other things on drives that cannot be updated. Can't have updates applied. You have to re-image it, redo the stick to have the current updates to have the security. But when it's virtualized, there's a lot of other factors installed in that too, because then a lot of malicious stuff can't happen. It can't install, and it can't do a lot of things because it can't install. That's why you can't update. Can't install. It's an image. It won't do anything. So that's some of the little factors that have to do with hard drives. And it's funny, you hear a lot of other things coming up that you wouldn't interpretate due to a hard drive. How you want to operate that system. Who operates that system? What that system is actually used for. That might make you be interested in changing the way you run that system. Maybe you have a standard spinning mechanical drive and you have a lot of problems with users downloading and doing stuff they shouldn't be doing, and you're always treating it for viruses and other stuff, Trojan horses and all the other type of stuff that comes up. Maybe you want to go to a virtual machine. You can actually do that on the hard drive also. But it makes it a little harder when you want to take that out and go to some place and do what you got to do to update that to make it more current. Maybe they need a new video driver because the display's not working properly or something of that sort. It's easier to take that out, go do what you got to do, re-image, do what you got to do, bring that back, put it in, whoop, and bring it up instead of using the drive. There's a lot of different variables to it, but this is one of those factors I wanted to bring up when you come into the hard drives. Hard drives are a different breed, and knowing simple stuff like cables, knowing from, I don't know if I have one right here, but standard IED, no, it must be somewhere else. But knowing all of these type of factors will help you out, will help you get the best benefit. If you're looking for a new computer for Windows 11 rated, to know, should I get this? Should I get NVMe? Should I get SATA? Should I get spinning mechanical drives? Should I get solid state drives? These are all very important factors to know. And you'll see some of them will actually advertise an NVMe with the spinning drive. And you'll kind of question, like, why would I want that with that? Why do I want this? This is too slow. It doesn't do anything. So it's on my computer now and it's slow. This is not your primary. So actually, I don't even use these. I don't recommend these anymore. The spinning mechanical. All our backup drives are SATA drives, because I want to offer the speed, performance. Why wait the extra few seconds for this? The cost factors. If you can afford to buy a SATA drive that's 500 gig and you're okay with that, it's not a bad deal. Maybe a terabyte. A little pricey, but as long as you don't need more than that for backup, you should be fine. If you need something like 5 terabytes, 4 terabytes, 10 terabytes, of course you're going to have to go with the spinning mechanical. Not to mention the other reason why I like SATA drives is it's not a moving parts. It's not spinning. The heads aren't moving. So if somebody's working and they kick the computer or they move it to clean it and they didn't turn it off to clean something, they spill something and they move that computer out of the way, you don't have that hard drive getting jostled. So these are some of those little factors I wanted to go through that really relate to the hard drives themselves. Maybe you just need a big enough storage and you can find it in something like that. Find it in a USB stick. There's another second factor here. where is this USB stick at on the computer? Where is this at on the computer? Where is this placed on the computer? Is it in a USB enclosure, external, or is it in the computer? If you're interested and worried about security-wise, you're better off putting it actually in the computer itself. If you're trying to do a backup and you want it independent and you don't want it where data can get lost, of course you're going to want a USB and you're going to take it and put it and lock it up someplace. Make sure it's secure. So I wanted to touch base on that. You have security issues also that might play into some of these choices. If you don't care about any of that, you can do whatever you want. But these are some of these factors that I've come across when you come across hard drive choices. Are you going to need it in multiple places? Is it just in one place? Maybe you have to add more space to a server and it's an emergency and you can't. So you go up, buy a USB drive, slap it in there, and you add an extra drive and you get you more space. Until you can get the physical drives to actually mount in there, do your RAID configurations, do whatever you got to do to them to get them up and running. So you have other options why you might need some of these other drives. So wanted to bring that difference because having a physical drive where you can insert into a server and having a USB drive can be beneficial and helpful if you have this around for in case of an emergency. In case your spinning mechanical drives go out and that has your backups on it and you need to do a backup. You can do a quick backup, you can save it, stash it away until you get your spinning mechanical drives replaced, put in, taken care of, and get the backup going. So these are some of those little points I wanted to bring up and show you the differences that have happened over the years. Because I've mentioned if you bought a computer 10 years ago and you're looking at a computer today, they're completely different. They are way completely different. What used to be the standard is not the standard anymore, and there's a lot of stuff. You might have been hearing about SATA drives, the SATA ports. And you think, oh yeah, I'm going to get that because I have an old IED. But somehow you have it still running on Windows 10, hopefully, and not running an old legacy version without any updates. And then you're going to have to get something new for Windows 11. You might be a little confused with all this information that's out there because you're not looking at these old bricks anymore. You might go into the store and find that little tiny mini computer sitting there on the shelf and go, wow, that's just part of a computer. Where's the rest? That is the whole computer. And that probably has a lot more features on it than you had on your old computer. So that's really the interesting, weird part of it all, is where things are at. When you go look, you might really think, oh my goodness, this is so great because of what you had. You got to know what is currently out there to know. Is that great? Is that way up here? Is that down here? Or is that way down here on the bottom? Because I have my buyer beware videos out there. Everybody's trying to push all this old technology. Oh, this is refurbished. This will work on gaming. This will work on this and that. It's got this nice 2080 video card and but it does not support Windows 11. It's old technology. So you think you're buying something good, well, you're really not. You're buying old legacy technology that's going to be gone in 2025 because Windows will not support it. So I wanted to go through and kind of do a breakdown and show these drives, because this is really one of those things that I hear a lot, blah, 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 but nobody really shows where the technology has actually come from, where it's gone, where we are currently at. The next gen was just announced in the color war with the new CPUs. We barely got Gen 4 adopted. There's barely any boards out there really using the Gen 4. They're all just going to Gen 4. They're already releasing Gen 5. This one's the Gen 3. So, wanted to touch base on that. Again, now, if you have an older, newer, modern computer that has something like this, that has, the Gen 3 in it, you can always do an enclosure when you get rid of that computer. I've done a video on this. And on here, you can actually see the screw holes for the different size cards. I know I did a video on that, but I wanted to show that. Because some computers use those little mini cards. There. That's quite impressive. I believe that's what this little mini one has, is one of those little smaller cards. Celeron. I'm using that to do videos and stuff for YouTube. Doing a lot of capturing and a lot of stuff on that really I never thought a Celeron would be able to do. Technology's moved up so far, but that's what I needed for this location. So I didn't need to go out and buy a $2,000 computer. It does what I need it to do. That's the main purpose for this. If you want to go out and buy a $2,000 computer, make sure you get the right things in your $2,000 computer. You really don't want to buy a spinning mechanical drive as your primary drive in a $2,000 computer. You don't want to be going out buying a 3090 video card or the new 40 series and trying to run it on a spinning mechanical. Spinning mechanical for backup and for storage and other things, yeah, that'd be fine. So there's a difference there. And if your board actually supports the m.2, I would recommend going out and getting that. It's a huge performance difference. Of course, there's going to be a huge price. And of course, then you have issues where you have to transfer your information from one device to another. Might have to do a clean install. One brand of solid state drives that I've used really has a nice piece of transfer software. Problem is if you got a lot of data, even if you don't have a lot of data, with the operating system being so large, it takes at least an hour to transfer that data. Now, if you're going from a SATA drive to an m.2 drive, it's going to be a lot less time. I've worked on some computers that took 3 hours. There was one that went from a m.2 from a SATA drive to another SATA drive that was a lot larger of a SATA drive. That 3 hour span for the same amount of data took about 20 minutes. That's the difference in performance. So, wanted to just go through this and do a bulk one on drives. I've got so many drives back there. These older ones, this big beast, probably this one, and this one will be some follow-up videos on taking them apart, showing you the insides, showing you stuff, controller boards, other type of things that are in here. I'm sure these companies probably don't care anymore. The stuff is so ancient and legacy that it won't really matter. But it's really interesting to see how these boards were designed. How they've changed, how they've done things. How this is the bottom of the board and this is the top of the board. How they implemented it. Why did, kind of interesting to see, why did they flip them? What was the reasoning for it? This is an old cable. Knowing your pin connectors used to be a big thing in the old days. Let me give you the other one. You will see one's missing a pin. There's a key reason. There were different speeds, different kind of cabling. So there's a lot of things that has to do with the older drives. And again, there are different things to do with these. The server boards, the server drives and stuff have different connectors. They look pretty much similar. But the server one, this is all connected together. There's no space. And it will slide in. Funny thing is you can use SATA drives in that spot because of how that space is set up. You can use either one. So there's little variables, but there's little differences and little benefits and little other things that you'll know. I've covered some of this on other videos, but I really just wanted to do a bulk video to show you the old first time enclosures, what they were. This is how you mount it. You screw it in. To something like this. Or this. I don't know if I can hold them all up at the same time, but there's a huge difference. So, in the old days, to have an external drive was a big, massive thing. Nowadays, if you really wanted to, you could probably find the smaller m.2 and the smaller enclosure. That would be pretty small. And of course, you always have your trusty handy dandy. If you really want something small to carry. So this is really where I see there's a huge difference in technology and drives. How you want to store stuff. Now, you can get these fairly large nowadays. This one's 16 gigs. Got them pretty cheap when I got them. But it's 16 gigs. If you're doing backups, and you're doing lots of backups of different systems and different things, and you want them on separate things, imagine if you had like 8 of these. 8 of these. 8 of something this size. 8 of something this size. What kind of storage space do you need? What kind of safety container? Again, this comes down to a lot of factors. And then you come down to your security side of it. You may want something this size because it's harder to pocket, it's harder to hide than something like that. Most businesses really don't allow things like this or like this in there because of the security concerns. So these are some of those little factors I kind of wanted to bring up, especially if you're a small business, medium business that don't really deal with a lot of that, to be aware of things like that. It's somewhat easy to slip that in a pocket or whatever. It's not that much different than a USB stick. Speed-wise, transfer-wise, well, of course, you're going to have your transfer cable. But USB-C, that's pretty much becoming the standard. So these are little tiny things, security-wise, drive-wise, all these type of factors that come into play. And again, size-wise, the old IEDs and all that ain't going to be a factor in your sizes. Storage, 2 terabyte. For a 2 terabyte is over $200. $10. So, wanted to go through that factor, point these little things out, go through some of this stuff so people are aware. These are some of these factors that come involved. Again, speed, data size, what you're using it for. All these factors come into play with drives. So these are some of those things I wanted to elaborate to everybody so that if you're looking to buy a new computer here pretty soon, you know what to watch out for, what to look out for. NVMe, understanding versions 3, 4, 5, knowing there's a difference and there's a speed factor. If you're using it for home, business type of stuff, it probably won't matter at all if you get a 3 or a 4. You're probably not going to want a 5 because that's gaming in, that's a high-end stuff. Gaming people, you're going to hear a buzz. Because everybody's going to want the new drive. Same thing with the version 4. There was a big buzz over the version 4 because of the speeds and how much faster. Because of the gaming people. So, I wanted to bring that into factor that you're going to hear a lot of buzz about that probably here soon. Because of the speed. For the gaming side. So, now that I went on way long enough on a simple thing as hard drives, connectors, external, internal, security, what they're used for, how they're used for. You might need both. You might want to do a mixture. You might just want to go for the pure speed and eliminate mechanical drives completely if you don't need the data size. And you just go for the pure speed, put in NVMe, put in a solid state. If you need the size, NVMe, spinning mechanical. These are the mixtures. It's not like it used to be in the old days where, oh, I'll just put in 2 or 3 of these and I have enough space and I'm good to go. Now you're going to want to talk about speed. Put in 2 or 3, 4 or 5 of these. You can rate them, you can stripe them, you can mirror them, you can do anything you want to these things in a system. Run it off an NVMe. You're great. You might want to put in multiple NVMe's. If you look at some of those higher end boards, they support 2, 3 NVMe. There's controller cards out there that will take 6, 7, 8, 10 NVMe's. They'll rate it, they'll stripe it, they'll do all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of crazy stuff out there. I don't know if you need any of that. But see, that draws a whole nother factor into, here I'm recommending, a solid state drive or spinning mechanical for storage. You might be able to get an extension card, put 5 of these things in there, stripe them, then you have enough data space. What the speed is and all of that, you'll have to benchmark, test it, I'm sure, and it'll probably perform better than your spinning mechanical. It'll probably do more operations than the spinning mechanical. Gonna be a lot more pricey. A lot more pricey. If money really isn't a factor, speed is the factor, there's things out there. So this is where the swaying is going. There's no way for me to tell you, oh yeah, just run out, buy this, you'll be fine. Depends on what you're using it for. Odds are, if you get an NVMe version 4, 5, with a solid state drive for your backup, as long as it's within the data range that you need, you should be perfectly fine for a long time. Or spinning mechanical for backup. Because you might end up being interested in gaming. That way your system can perform at a decent rate with that extra drive. So there's all these little factors that come into play. Future growth, what you want to do, how you want to do it. But I know I've gone on long enough. Make sure you hit the subscribe. Make sure you hit the bell for the updates. There's a lot more videos coming. I will be breaking down some of these drives and disposing of them because they're ancient legacy. You can't even find motherboards that will even support these drives anymore. I got a whole bunch of them. Pick out parts. Maybe I'll do something fun. Maybe I'll make an art project out of it. I don't know. That was part of my goal, was to weld some stuff up, make some art projects out of it. That's why I kept them, but I just never did it. Now, I pretty much have to do something with it because they're sitting there collecting dust and I can't do anything with it other than make videos and show you them and dispose of them. So, let me wrap this one up. I hope everybody got enough information, was able to see these old beasts. And drives used to be bigger than this. I will tell you, drives used to be bigger than this. I don't think I have any of the old ones from 486 drives and stuff like that when they first started doing drives. I think I have a memory card and other stuff in there. And I did say card, not stick. It was literally a card for memory. So, this is where things have come from down to. It's quite amazing. And the sizes are growing on the newer technology. So, be aware. Know what's out there. Know what you're going to need. Know that m.2 does have some fairly small size drives. Not a whole lot of data on you can put on them because don't forget the operating system takes a lot of data. Knowing these factors are important to know that you buy the right thing. Knowing that, okay, yeah, I got an m.2, but it's 128 meg, and I got, 128 meg, or 128 gig, solid state or spinning. Those are probably too small. Those are pretty much the smallest they make. You don't want to go too small. You want to be in the middle. Like I said, around 500, 250. 500 is probably the better number, depending on what you're doing. Then you can go into terabytes. You can go into whatever you want for your backup. So I wanted to go through that and make sure I explain that because I did say a lot of times you can overkill and do too much. You can on some things. But there are some things that are still pretty small that you got to be aware of. Memory size, NVMe size are basically where I see they're still putting some cost cuttings on there to try to make the computer look cheap, make it look at a good price, but you got to be careful. Kind of a buyer beware there. I know I'm going on and on and on, but this is the fun of a hard drive. When you look at a new computer, when you look at doing something, this is the fun of the hard drives. But this is the key of it that will save you some headaches later. And of course, CPU, graphics card, and memory are the next things, the motherboard and what it supports. But knowing this is very important because then it will help you out with, of course, your motherboard to know how many of these can I put, how many of these can I put, all the stuff that can be added, how much memory can be added. All these factors come into play together. So I know I've gone on and on because there's a lot of detail I think needs to be covered on a hard drive. Thank you all for watching. Make sure you hit the subscribe and the bell. Thank you so much for watching another video from Yates Computers Tips and Reviews.